Planet Tiamat was in existence probably in Earth's historical reference uh, before the move from Alpha Centauri to what we call the Milky Way. It's hard to know whether or not it was influenced or whether the crash that caused Tiamat to split was influenced by higher beings or if it was something that naturally occurred and it was seen as a refugee planet and basically spawned what we know as Earth among many other parts in or around the asteroid belt. And what we know about Tiamat is that it is an old planet. It was supposedly very inhabitable. Due to its size, it was able to hold supposedly a lot of uh, the right conditions for a hospitable planet between where the sun was and where the asteroid belt is now, involving where Mars, Earth, and Sirius is. It's kind of weird that Sirius actually survives in that area when everyone thought that Earth was the only spin-off planet from Tiamat. And it wasn't. Tiamat has several names depending on which culture you look into. Um, I've heard it being called Phaeton, Phaethon, Phaethos. Tiamat also has several names in of itself. I've heard it called Tamos or something like that, and various other names very similar depending on whose dialect you're hearing it from and what ending of the language they use. But this was supposed to be a real planet right where the asteroid belt is between Mars, Earth, and where Sirius is. Sirius is a little bit off to the side, so that's why everybody says, "Oh, well, Sirius is an actual satellite. You know, it's a moon of Mars." And technically, that's not true. It's its own technical independent planet, just in the habitable zone of Mars, or of Mars and Earth. But it's said to be a lot colder. But anyways, planet Tiamat was destroyed probably around 500 million years ago. Records suggest 4 billion years ago, but unfortunately, since none of us were around then, we don't know exactly when that was true. I'm going to go into a few things here and there, and I'm going to basically bring these to light to kind of dismiss the whole idea that Tiamat was actually destroyed by Marduk, or what we know today as Nibiru. There's a lot of reasoning for that, and I have a lot of my own reasoning as to why that Tiamat was not actually destroyed by Nibiru. And the main foundation is that if you had two major bodies that were the size basically of Jupiter, and Nibiru is supposed to be, I've heard 10 times the size of Jupiter, I've heard 100 times the size of Jupiter. I've heard even as much as 1,000 times the size of Jupiter, which is just insane to even reference. Yes, I'll go into photos and things in a little bit. But right now, I just want to kind of go over the basis for all of this. If you look into asteroids and you look at the effects of asteroids, you reference asteroids, and you see that the sun, to some degree or another, deflects major asteroids from hitting major parts of the solar system, deflects them back into space. I'll show you that in a little bit. And so the sun's magnetic forces, if you will, take the body that would be and reroutes it back into a polar orbit away from the massive bodies. Anyway, so even larger bodies, I'm certain, would have some kind of deflected course from where they're supposed to be. I'm not saying that a collision is not possible. It's absolutely possible. In fact, it almost has to be possible. I'm just saying it's not completely the fault of Nibiru, because if Nibiru happened to actually be involved with Tiamat and where the asteroid belt is and everything, pretty much Mars would have been affected. According to the sources and everything, Earth was split from Tiamat and was sent, basically in its current orbit. So it doesn't really matter which direction one thing is versus another, because this happened so long ago. The Greeks even made legends to keep it alive, so that some idea of it would actually come down the pipeline. That's what happens when things happen so long ago. People make religions about it. So all the major religions and all the major things that happen, there was probably some major astrological event, and they tried to reference that and to hold that in it. And later, it was made into a religion so that those who knew would be able to keep the story alive, and those who didn't know would have, be under the control of those who knew, and so they would do their bidding because they would have all the masterful powers, etc. So this is how religions basically started, and how even today, basically banks organize ideas and large events around worshipping systems that were probably based on astrological events, among many other things. And those in power hold the grand idea, the grand education, to know this is what it was, this is what it wasn't. And the people go, okay, that is now a person, and those events happened 1,000 years ago, and we should understand them as such. Partly true, partly not true, but it is what it is. So there's a lot on this, and if you go into your online searches, you will find a lot of information on this. So this is one of the things I'm going to show you. Origins of our solar system, Tiamat under Exopedia, the case for planet Tiamat, Phaeton, and you go into here, and it basically says Phaeton was another name for Tiamat. And then down here it talks about Marduk and Tiamat and celestial bodies battling it out, whether groups of people, etc., etc., etc. You will actually get that information later. But I'm just trying to get this and the basis information. So Tiamat was technically an exoplanet of Earth. This is basically some information into Tiamat. It mentions a lot of religious sorts of things, and it mentions Zecharia Sitchin because he's written a lot of information on these subjects, and I don't actually like the guy's references. I prefer different people because I think he uses more of the religious artifacts and the religious ideology behind it. But it basically goes into saying that, um, that their gods, of course, are ancient astronauts, and one of the legends is a relationship with the gods, uh, and basically entered our world from their planet Nibiru on the way into the inner solar system. Nibiru came into close proximity with a planet called Tiamat. Now, Tiamat happened to be where the asteroid belt is. Needless to say, Tiamat ended up in a million pieces, and we don't actually know what happened to Nibiru. Nibiru should have also been in a million pieces. Nibiru or Marduk, whichever you prefer. Hint, hint, nod, nod. Marduk is actually the idea behind Bardock in the Dragon Ball Z franchise, I believe. All right, so they basically say that the planet uh, Tiamat, aka Phaeton, existed where the asteroid belt was. And it's coming out of WordPress, out of a UPenn team that kind of put this together. There was a New York Times reference in July 7, 2003, of a diagram showing the position of the Sun, Earth, Mars, Jupiter in our solar system compared to a superimposed sketch of a newfound solar system with a planet in a circular orbit between Mars and Jupiter. Astronomers reportedly found the discovery exciting because the findings suggest the solar system might also be an Earth-like planet. Basically, the idea premise was that Tiamat was this planet, and if it wasn't for the collision, it would still be there. Once again, the Sumerians actually wrote about this, supposedly from records from the Anunnaki, and it was eventually said, and despite what it says here, that the Anunnaki had actually told the Sumerians of what actually had occurred, because it actually pre-existed the Sumerians on Earth, because Earth is supposed to be from Tiamat, it's supposed to be a piece that flew off out of orbit and realigned elsewhere. I don't really like Sitchin very much, but Sitchin basically theorized about planetary ejection from an ancient solar system, which is possibly made up of Nibiru entering our solar system. New Scientist had another spin on it. Basically, Cardiff University of the United Kingdom said that this all happened right around panspermia, if you guys remember that. Scientists reported seeing clay particles spewing out of the interior from NASA's Deep Impact probe, and they basically had an idea involving this that has nothing to do with that. I apologize. Astrophysicists at Andalusia of Granada, Spain, gave the asteroid 7472 had similar design to the crust on Earth and other inner planets, and that basically this would be between the orbits of Jupiter and Mars, the presence of Basalt is evidence that an object was once large enough to sustain internal heating, and it was also backed up by the Institute of Astrophysics of Andalusia in Granada, Spain. So there's a lot of different groups on this. This isn't just crazy conspiracy theory or crazy conspiracy conjecture. These are real things that real people really believe really happened. And people really do believe this happened because there's enough scientific evidence still in that region. So, here's the one on Phaeton. Again, same idea, different name. Phaeton, less often Phaethon, is a quote-unquote hypothetical planet, quote-unquote, even though we saw that real universities were studying this, between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, whose destruction supposedly led from a formation of the asteroid belt. The hypothetical planet was named Phaeton, son of the god Helios in Greek mythology, who attempted to drive his father's solar chariot for a day with a disastrous result, and was ultimately destroyed by Zeus. Also relating, 3200 Phaethon is an asteroid, sometimes incorrectly spelled Phaeton, is a Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars orbit crossing Apollo asteroid with unusual properties, with no absolute references to what the hell they're even talking about here. Well, you can click on this, you can do everything, it's not going to take you anything amazing. So we know that this is here, we know what this is, and I'm not going to go into the Phaeton hypotheses because we've already debunked earlier through this source here, among others, that the asteroid belt was made from a larger whole unit, and now it's a bunch of scattered units. So we know it was at least at one point or another a solar system, or not a solar system, a planetary body of some sort or another. And now it's not. So we're well versed in the idea that Tiamat was, in fact, at some point or another, either a giant rock, a planet, an exoplanet of some kind, or a giant meteor that was passing through that might have actually gotten stuck, and, Nibiru came by, or we assume Nibiru came by, and hit it, yet Nibiru is not in our planetary vector. That's why I automatically throw out the Nibiru reference. Also, the shockwave would have also destroyed much of what is Mars and at least part of Jupiter, and Mercury and or Venus, depending on the shockwave and the density of magnetic and non-magnetic energies that were released, because the energies would have penetrated the cores and severely disrupted the cores of both planets. This would have not just been a, sci-fi related planetary explosion. I do believe a Tiamat existed. My theory is it's right in the middle of, or was right in the middle of the solar system. This looks like it might have been to some juncture of or another. There's no real reference that it was moving with the other planets. So my theory is Tiamat might have even been, to some degree or another, the vessel, if you will go so far as to stretch your mind to that level, that brought us here from Alpha Centauri. Maybe even they hijacked the whole planet and they basically toured the middle of each solar system to get here. Um, whoever it was, Anunnaki, named something else, I don't care. And basically, they were in the middle of the solar system observing Mars, Jupiter, everything else, when Nibiru approached and struck them. Maybe they couldn't get out of the way, maybe they didn't want to, maybe they abandoned it, I have no idea. But it makes for 100 other spin-off scenarios. I know I said I was going to go into the universal data saving points, and that type of thing isn't saved. I'll do that next time around. I want to bring your attention back to the real situation here, and I found something down here that says the solar system outline. It looks like this is not the one that our grade school classes taught us. As you can read, it reads Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, which we know. Mars actually had Sirius as a planet. Kudos, I agree with that. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, okay. And here's the ones I didn't recognize. Lumia, Makemake, and Eris. So this is basically what they're saying here. There's Sun, an interplanetary medium, inner solar system. Inner planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. The asteroid belt where I apologize, I'm going blank, where Tiamat used to be. Ceres, which is still technically in the asteroid belt, which is a dwarf planet. The asteroid groups, which some of them I do believe do have minor atmospheres. I could be wrong, but I know that some of them do. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Oddly enough, they have Centaur, which is a minor planet. That is very interesting. Centaurus, which is a minor planet. They have comets. Trans-Neptunian region, Kuiper Belt. They have Pluto, and then they list Charon, which is a moon of Pluto. And they have Haumea. And they have Makemake being planets. They have a scattered disk of various things. They have Eris, which is a dwarf planet. And just how you have the animal system, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, you have the galactic context, which has relative location. I forget all the major ones leading up to it, but this is basically the idea. You have the universe, the quadrant sector, the galaxy sector, the something or another, and then you have like Milky Way, you have the local interstellar cloud, so you have Orion here, local interstellar cloud, you have Alpha Centauri and our solar system, which are neck and neck, 4.4 light years away. Star system where Earth is located. Earth, the only planet known to have life, including intelligent life, including humans. That's an absolute lie. I can tell you Serpatia, among others, have life. I guarantee the majority of planets have life like ours. I guarantee you that none of the actual planets do not have trees of some sort, do not have bugs, at least I imagine if we were allowed to study the sun, we would find out very quickly that even our mighty sun has organisms of some sort or another. And whether or not they're hostile or just blobs of plasma that happen to be somewhat intelligent, I don't know. But I imagine we can find something if we have the technology and the ability to look. So this is basically where Tiamat was, and that planet Tiamat was said to exist. It was in Sumerian records. Some say passed down from the Anunnaki. Some say Sumar had them because they witnessed it when they were still part of Tiamat. But if Earth is still part of Tiamat, then when Tiamat was struck, no matter by what it was, then it was partly destroyed and the orbit was changed nearly dramatically. And that over time it was reformed. But I don't believe in the idea that Tiamat made Earth. I think Tiamat was Jupiter. And that from Tiamat's destruction, we get what's left over of Jupiter, Earth, Mars, and some of the other planets in Exos in the region, including Ceres, where Hamas and Makemake and Eris come into it. They're exoplanets which have been pulled into line over a vast time period. So, like always, folks, you decide, but I decided to put this up because I was very into this idea that planet Tiamat actually existed. The asteroid belt exists. Generally, asteroid belts don't generally exist unless something was in the region that basically fell to pieces. And so we kind of come to the conclusion, like always you decide, but that planet Tiamat, under one name, one form, or another, did actually exist. It was real, it was tangible, and that no matter what we say or do, there are large universities in the United Kingdom and places that aren't worried about, your race and everything, that are actively studying this, that found asteroids with, I forget their wording, but basically geography or geology enough similar to Earth that it's worth saying that the asteroid belt did belong to Earth at some point. Whether Tiamat was a proto-Earth or Earth is a proto-Tiamat, you go with the difference. But I'm just here to bring you the info. The next one will definitely blow your socks off, and I definitely have a lot rigged for it. A lot of good information. It says that basically the universe generally cannot save information for itself, and so it has to basically reconstruct it as best it remembers, but not having a save point, not having a saving location, actually holds it back. But I think it'll be a good one. Thank you. Earth, among many other parts in or around the asteroid belt. And what we know about Tiamat is that it is an old planet. It was supposedly very inhabitable. Due to its size, it was able to hold supposedly a lot of the right conditions for a hospitable planet between where the sun was and where the asteroid belt is now, involving where Mars, Earth, and Ceres is. It's kind of weird that Ceres actually survives in that area. when everyone thought that planet Tiamat was in existence probably in Earth's historical reference uh, before the move from Alpha Centauri to what we call the Milky Way. It's hard to know whether or not it was influenced or whether the crash that caused Tiamat to split was influenced by higher beings or if it was something that naturally occurred and it was seen as a refugee planet and basically spawned what we use. But this was supposed to be a real planet right where the asteroid belt is between Mars, Earth, and where Sirius is. Sirius is a little bit off to the side, so that's why everybody says, "Oh, well, Sirius is an actual satellite. You know, it's a moon of Mars." And technically, that's not true. It's its own technical independent planet, just in the habitable zone of Mars, or of Mars and Earth. But it's said to be a lot colder. But anyways, planet Tiamat was destroyed probably around 500 million years ago. Records suggest 4 billion years ago, but unfortunately, since none of us were around then, we don't know exactly when that was true. I'm going to go into a few things here and there, and I'm going to basically bring these to light to kind of dismiss the whole idea that Tiamat was actually destroyed by Marduk, or what we know today, that Earth was the only spin-off planet from Tiamat. And it wasn't. Tiamat has several names, depending on which culture you look into. I've heard it being called Phaeton, Phaethon, Phaethos. Tiamat also has several names in of itself. I've heard it called Tamos or something like that, and various other names very similar depending on whose dialect you're hearing it from and what ending of the language they use.